Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Kahlout podcast. I'm the side guy. Today, we sit down for an in-depth conversation and navigate through the trials and tribulations of life's most challenging moments. Our podcast is a tapestry of human resilience, a place where laughter and stories light up even the darkest of times. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special guest. Jack Silver. Jack, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Of course. My man, Jack. Jack, tell us about yourself. What do you do for a living?
Well, for a living, I'm a student here at Arizona State.
Very good, very good.
So I came here in 2021. Got a little bit of a late start to academia because I did 5 years in the Marine Corps infantry before starting school.
Okay.
So I'm a business law major.
Okay.
In my second major, this is a long name.
Okay.
Bear with me.
All right, let's hear it.
The School of Civic and Economic Thought and Leadership.
Bruh.
And
Okay. That's a long one. All right.
Yes, so we commonly refer to it as SCETL. The acronym SCETL.
Okay.
So I will likely, be calling it that.
SCETL. Got it. Okay. So Marine Corps, and then went into school after the Marines. And now looking at finishing in business, what are some trials and tribulations you're going through while undergoing schooling here at ASU?
Well, I think there was a bit definitely of like an adjustment period.
Okay.
Coming to university from service. Again, like particularly the infantry. It's a much different culture there than here, but I'm very well acclimated to everything now. I love it. Like I said, I do it all over again. I'm really enjoying my time here at this wonderful university. So.
That's awesome, man. ASU is great. It's huge. It's massive. It's almost like it's a town in itself. You mentioned at the Eid festival, you wanted to talk about an experience that when you went abroad, you had an impression, but going through it may be completely different. Yeah. I wanted to get your take on that. Tell the viewers what it is that you signed up for. What did you study? Where did you go? What experiences, what trials and tribulations did you go through? And walk us through that. Tell us
absolutely. Yeah. So I, through my second major, SCETL, we offer some very unique study abroad programs that are, and one thing I really like about them is they're heavily subsidized by the school. Okay. So the costs, because normally when you hear study abroad,
that's expensive.
Yes, right away. It's like cost prohibitive. You can't do it. But this, it's very affordable. You get credits and everything. Yeah. And I saw that they had one to Israel and Palestine.
Okay.
And so I applied for it and everything, got accepted. And, it piqued my interest, originally I was sort of thinking of a career in law, but I've sort of pivoted to something more in foreign policy. That's just generally what I've been more interested in. Yeah. And, when I signed up for this experience and everything, I was a practicing Christian. Yeah. And, obviously, like the significance of, that land is not lost, I think, on anybody. So I just kind of wanted to go and, like, see it. And here too, like particularly in America, like I didn't really have like a good understanding of like what was happening
in the Middle East.
Yes,
Israel, Palestine.
In Israel, Palestine in particular. Okay. Because you kind of hear a lot of like like it's
complicated.
It's complicated. Yeah. It's like it's a democracy. Yes. It's sort of like America Junior, but on the Mediterranean, and then. Like outside of that, I really didn't have any understanding of it. So I was really just intrigued to go, see it. And the reason why, that's one of our study abroad destinations is we go to, there, India, I believe, and I'm actually going to Romania in August.
Okay.
And we go to these locations because they are relatively new democracies. So in seeing what these places are like in their earlier years, this is as close as we can get to seeing like what our great nation was like near its founding. Because each, like we've certainly had our growing pains.
Absolutely.
Like there's a lot that wasn't, like slavery and everything. It took us a long time to fix some very severe wrongs, and sort of seeing how some of these other places are navigating their early troubles. Again, it's like as close as we can get to seeing maybe what America was like at its inception.
So it's the study of the beginning of democracies abroad, watching countries take the same steps or completely different ones. So you're studying that concept.
Yes.
Abroad.
Yes.
Very good. Very good.
Yes.
That's awesome. Looking at it from a different view. So what experiences did you have? So you said you've only been to Israel, Palestine. Have you gone anywhere else? Or?
Well, yeah. I've been around the block when I was in the Marines, but for school, that's my only study abroad experience in academia.
So walk us through that. What'd you experience?
So yeah, we went May of 23. That's when we were there, and it was pretty short. It was like May, like a week and a half or so. And we went to Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, and Bethlehem, which of course is in Palestine.
Correct.
And again, one of the things I really liked about the program, like that appealed to me before going, was it was very deliberate in showing both sides of the story. Because here in the States, we only get half.
Of course,
of it.
You get what Fox News shows.
Yes. Yeah.
So when you say both sides, what do you mean by both sides?
So we had a guide. We had a couple different guides while we were there, and we would alternate between like an Israeli guide, and then we had a couple different ones. Like some were varying degrees of practicing Jewish people.
Okay.
And then also like one of our guides was like living in one of these settlements, and one of them was like very much in like disagreement with like what the settler kind of stood for.
Gotcha.
And then our Palestinian guide, and again, kind of like alternating days, like we saw each one about half. She was a Orthodox Christian living in a neighborhood called Beit Sahor, which is like relatively near Bethlehem.
Gotcha. Okay.
So again, like, show up there thinking kind of like expecting to see like America.
Yeah.
Because that's like what we...
Democracy.
Yeah.
Tax dollars.
Yeah. And it was not what like life is like here.
All right.
There,
walk us through it. What'd you see? What'd you find? What'd you experience?
There's very strong differences, I think, generally between Israelis living in Jerusalem and Israelis living in Tel Aviv. Again, from my perspective and limited time there, like the Israelis living in Tel Aviv are much more like what you kind of think of when you think of like Americans. To me, at least, like it's
like folks from New York kind of thing.
Yeah. That's like, or like, because the way I kind of like Tel Aviv to me in a lot of ways reminded me like so much of LA. Because it's like on the water. Tel Aviv, yeah. Like their
tech hub, all the companies headquarters, Tel Aviv.
Yes, yeah. So it's like that's where all the money's made. It feels very much so like a Western city in Tel Aviv. But one of the things, again, that kind of really took me aback was, again, I didn't know this going there, was the state of Israel doesn't recognize interfaith marriages. So, like, So
Christian, Muslim.
Yeah, they don't do that.
Jewish, Muslim.
Yeah.
It's got to be just either Jewish, Muslim, Christian, or...
Correct.
Religion X and religion X.
Yes.
There's no X and Y mixed.
Yes, correct.
Interesting, okay.
So one of the things we did in Tel Aviv was there's this man who he runs this school because he's a Muslim man, married a Jewish woman, and so the way they kind of get around this like marriage recognition problem is the state of Israel recognizes marriage like licenses from other countries. So they had to leave Israel,
get married in another country,
and come back.
My goodness.
And again, like that's something that's so like
you can't stop love. You can't stop people. Eventually there'll be a way and a loophole. So that's crazy. Yeah, I didn't know that law existed. That's crazy.
Yeah, and so it's tough too, because like they have they have like kids, and they ran into this issue where like their children were sort of like ostracized from society. So they actually started their own school, because like they were trying to put their kids in school and they couldn't do it.
Why?
Because of the interfaith marriage.
Oh, so like schools follow that rule and they reject kids that come from a broken rule? I meant.
Yeah, I mean.
What does the school have to do with anything?
I know, it's very, because it's not like the kid had a vote.
You see what I'm saying?
Like,
yeah.
No, it's so,
okay.
So
there's a reason behind this no mixing of religions rule. So that's weird. Got to look into it. Folks, if you know why the country of Israel has made that rule and enforced it all the way down to the kids, let us know in the comments.
Yeah,
all right?
Yeah. No,
because that's a weird one.
No, it is. It's very strange. And so they made this school, again for children of interfaith marriages.
Okay.
And it was great. We got to like volunteer there. It was so cool. Like we brought like little like kids books.
Yeah.
And we're like reading to the kids, and the school is just beautiful. Like they had like a little classroom and stuff. We read them. It was just sort of like courtyard outside, and they had like fenced off, like goats and like chickens and stuff, and then like a little play area for the kids.
I'm sure it wasn't like a state-of-the-art school since they just started it off, but it's
no, it was nice though.
It was a nice school. Okay.
Yeah, no, I mean they had, like I said, like they had a courtyard where like the kids like played and everything, and then they had like more traditional like.
Do you remember the name?
Ooh, I believe it was the Children of Abraham.
Children of Abraham.
Yes.
Multi-religion, multicultural school for children.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was and again like just that very stark contrast between
it's
like
black and white.
Yeah, like because you hear again something, I'm very, very thankful to be born here and be living here, because no chance of anything like that in this country. Like it doesn't matter, like the state doesn't have a say in the person you love. So when you hear like, oh yeah, this is like very, very similar to America, like it's just there's some very deep structural things that are, it's so clearly very different from us.
So that's crazy, man. I'm thinking, okay, if I want to bring a business, if I want to bring money into a country where there's the idea, the notion of perceived freedom, right? A democracy, if there's laws, there's rules, and the people come together and vote. Well, in some cases, like Palestine, Israel, Palestine, you go there and everything's segregated. You can't mix religions, and I feel like it's tied to you can't mix races at this point, and we need to make a clear segregation, right?
Yeah,
there are these people, and then there are us, right? Coming in as a student, experiencing that learning abroad. Walk us through what the education system is like.
Yeah, so we did actually, one of the things we did was we met a group of students, and I want to say they're all Jewish.
Okay.
And they were at like a very similar program to ours, actually. Very like, like small class sizes. We kind of try and answer some questions in our program. Like what does it mean to be an American?
Yeah.
Should we pursue a life of virtue? Like these types of like philosophical questions with political undertones.
Absolutely.
It was sort of like a very similar, like liberal arts program.
Okay.
We met some students over there, and kind of like some backdrop here is when we were there was a lot of domestic sort of concern about the Israeli judicial branch
Okay.
So I don't know if you followed any of this from that time. Okay, so
what year was this?
23.
23. Okay.
Yeah.
So this was last year.
Yeah,
okay.
last May. So this was like right before. I think Prime Minister Netanyahu had like a corruption trial.
Oh yes.
It was right before this.
Yes.
It was in May. So, but what was going on, like actively while we were there, was the judicial branch was being limited in power by, I think mostly Prime Minister Netanyahu, and a little bit of like the Knesset, which is like their parliament, or like, you know, equivalent to our Congress.
Yeah.
Because something that's a bit murky over there, again, something I didn't know is super interesting to, you know, see the Knesset and learn some of this stuff, is they don't have a constitution. So they sort of do like all of their practices by like sound. It had a word for it. I can't remember. It was like sound judgment or something. Like it's kind of like off the cuff. You know, over there, you know, they also have like, you know, the judicial branch, and then like an executive, and then the Knesset is like their legislative. The judicial branch was not just limited to judicial review. Like the judicial branch over there had much more power than ours does in the US.
Interesting.
And another thing that was super interesting about it was like, you over there, like their Supreme Court equivalent is really like, they need a constitution.
Yeah.
They select their own replacements. So it's not like
it's rigged. It's rigged.
Yeah, so like whatever party division exists, like in their Supreme Court.
Yeah, we have to nominate Supreme Court judges, right?
Yeah, so like I think the president nominates them, and then they're like confirmed by the Senate.
Yes.
So in Israel, the judges are like, again, equivalent to like Supreme Court justices, select their own replacements.
Okay.
So whatever, you know, they're going to select somebody of their similar political affiliation.
Absolutely.
Obviously, like
keep
on the
it rigged.
Yeah, and you know, again, very different to our process here. And so again, what was going on there was their judicial branch was being limited to like just judicial review, whereas before they could kind of interject into more government activities than like what we're used to here. Like the court could just kind of step in to some process and say, you know, like no. Whereas like
it's almost like a hybrid role. They can just step in any other field of government and then and then interject or
correct. Yeah. Or at least, or like tell people to like stop doing certain things. And so
wouldn't that fall under abuse of power? Or is it normal?
Well, again, they don't have a constitution.
So
you know what I mean?
So there's tells them no.
Yeah. Right. So that's kind of an issue, is like all parts of their government are sort of like just constantly vying for power. And it creates a system that isn't, you know, perfect. So while we were there, you know, there's a lot of like, there was some domestic sort of tension about like the future of the judicial, because people who were supportive of like judicial reforms, you know, viewed it as like, hey, look, the court has too much power. Like we need something to kind of rein it in, or at least like define what it is. And then people who were opposed to these reforms were like, oh, this is like an attempt to, you know, limit the judiciary, which again is like this relationship. It is important, you know, like how your Supreme Court works with the rest of your government. Like, and again, if they had a constitution, some of these things would be more clear, but it's just something that,
I mean, they rely on each other, but they don't work each other's. I mean, you can't step into the Supreme Court and say, I need you to push this case aside and make it happen because it's in our favor. It just doesn't work that way. Right.
Yeah. Like they're independent, you know, like there's a lot of good things about a strong judiciary and everything. Yeah. So that was kind of what was going on while we were there. So like most of our dialogue with other students was more centered like around that. Like, what do you think of this? And it was interesting. Like a lot of them, they're like, gosh, I don't know.
Really?
You know, I mean, because it is one of those things, you know, it's like a very, you know, like when people ask, I mean, imagine like somebody, you know, not from America asks you, you know, like me, an American, like a pretty loaded question No. And, and there's like somewhat of a language barrier too. True, yeah. Like it's kind of like it's a tough question to answer. I understand. But yeah, so that was like the big, current event that was happening there. But what really, again, surprised me was seeing the very stark differences in Bethlehem to Tel Aviv.
Old Village, New York.
Because, because the way our trip was structured, it was like a few days in Jerusalem, and then we went to Bethlehem, and then we did Tel Aviv last. Okay. Because, it kind of made sense. Like the airport's there, so, fly
on the way out. Yep.
Yeah.
Got it.
And so, like, yeah, in Bethlehem, like, again, something I had no idea about was, like, the access to clean drinking water in Palestine is very limited. Like, on the roofs of every building so you just pointed to the sky, so I think you kind of know what I'm about to start talking about. Yes, the water tanks. Yes.
Yeah. They got a water truck, water tank. They come bring them water. Weekly, right?
I think.
Or is it monthly?
I think maybe weekly. But they have there is some running water, but it's inconsistent and it's not potable.
Oh no.
So a lot of it isn't. I don't know about all of it. But they told us we shouldn't.
Don't even drink.
Yeah, we should. Yeah. Especially waterborne illnesses. It's always best to err on the side of caution.
Absolutely.
And seeing that this, it was so shocking to me that these people were because here, you can see we're 10, 15 yards away from a water fountain right
Absolutely.
Now. We don't even think about it.
Nope.
This is something where, in the modern, world, water access we think is just normal.
Yeah.
And it should be for everybody.
Yeah.
And over there, it's not. And that was something that it really struck me. And we went to, I think the best way I can kind of explain this is, I mentioned our guide lived, I think it's nearby Bethlehem. But we went to dinner, and it was her father, mother, her and their little, in their home. It was just wonderful. Again, I'd like to talk about this too. Something that really struck me about the Palestinian people is, especially when a lot of U.S. tax money goes to things that are at their detriment. They welcomed us in their home. They're the most kind, nice people that I've been all over the world, and there's nothing like them.
Yeah.
And
what did you end up seeing anything different? There's a lifestyle different from the Israeli versus the Palestinian?
Yeah. So the thing I was going to mention is, so we eat dinner, and it's I had kanafa.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was
Palestinian kanafa in Palestine.
Yeah. It was so good.
That's the kanafa.
Yes,
right
yes.
All right.
And so we're hanging out. We eat the dinner, and I don't think I'm ever gonna forget this. Is I took my plate to the sink, right, and I go to start washing it, and our guide, she kind of stops me, and she says, "I know what you're trying to do, and thank you, but we don't have water to wash the dishes like how you do in your country." And I'm never gonna forget that. The feeling when I heard that of just this very deep sadness and anger.
Hit you right in the heart.
Yeah, because I was just trying to be a good guest.
Absolutely.
I was very thankful for their hospitality.
Trying to be nice. Yeah.
And it was
Hits you right in the heart.
Yeah, like that.
You can't waste that water. We're gonna clean them a different way. We're gonna wipe them down. We're gonna use rainwater. We're gonna use something else. Yeah.
Yeah. I just like, again, I think that's something I don't think I'll ever forget.
Yeah.
You know.
No, that's. You don't think about that. You don't think about that in a different country where, you know, the normal things, the first world amenities that we have to our disposal, it's not the case elsewhere. And even though a couple miles down the block, in a different city, everything is well established. There's a sewage system. There's a water line. You don't have to dig wells. You know what I mean? And it's a completely different world. Yeah. And it's by design, unfortunately. So.
Yeah. No, it definitely is, like, because while we were in, the West Bank in Palestine, one of the things we did, which again, this is a great opportunity. We volunteered at this farm called the Tent of Nations, I believe. Have you ever heard of this?
Tent of Nations?
Yeah.
I have not. Is it international or is it global or? Yeah,
so it's like people from all over go and volunteer there. Like while we were there, it was it was a smaller like Christian liberal arts program from the Midwest. But like some other students were there.
Okay.
But so this farmer, he has this little, like farm, grapes and stuff, and he is completely surrounded by settlements on all sides of his farm.
Okay.
And something the Israelis have actually done is like blocked. They did I don't remember exactly how they did it, but they blocked his like best access to like the road to get off of the farm. So like when you get there, you have to like park and then like walk up this hill and like get to it.
Make
and
it
everything.
Harder.
Yes.
What would they do? They put a checkpoint somewhere?
No, it's not like an actual checkpoint. It's just like harder. There's not like a manned checkpoint, but they just made it difficult for him to get.
They just put a roadblock.
It's not really a road. I don't want to say like a roadblock. It was just like whatever path he used to like get to the road.
It's no longer there.
It's no longer there.
I've heard so many people tell me that things that were normal, had they made the government came in, changed out the demographic, the roads changed. Getting from point A to point B used to be 2 minutes. Now it's 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah.
Things in that nature didn't make sense.
Yeah.
And
it is a deliberate attempt to make his life harder because,
Is the idea to get him to leave? Is that the whole thing?
Yes. They want him gone.
It's like, this
so
is
they can have the land
miserable.
for settlements.
Just take that. You got it.
And again, because he's like a farmer, your goods are big and bulky, and so it makes it much harder for him to get what he grows,
make a living,
to his the end consumer, and so again we're at this farm. We did some like planted like a few dozen like they do grapes, that's what we did, like a few dozen grape trees.
Okay.
And something, again, kind of like before I went to, this part of the world is like, I didn't really have, because it's hard for us in America to have this understanding of people being so attached to their like land.
Oh, yeah.
Because here, where our nation's only a couple hundred years old, right? So, we get there and, I do remember this gentleman's name, Daoud. Very nice man, and we're farming, we're helping him do the thing, and I just remember again like this one little quote he's like, look, I've been here, like my family has been here for 1,000 years. This farm,
I ain't going nowhere.
I'm not leaving. But here, like again, as to Americans, that idea is something we kind of have difficulty with, because of how relatively new of a country we are. Like we don't understand being in a place for that long yet. And something, again, like from his story is, he's in this very like extensive legal battle with the government. With Israel. Like, because the thing that's especially interesting about, his farm is he has like clean line of title going back 1,000 years.
Oh, there's proof.
Yes.
Oh, he has receipts.
Yes.
Oh,
yes,
no.
he does.
Oh, no.
So part of this legal battle is like because they have issues with like not everybody can leave the property at the same time because the settlers will come in and steal it. So they have to be kind of
okay. Let me restructure what you just stated, because I don't think a lot of folks understand what you just said. So you have a farm, right? You got this farm. Let's just imagine it. We have Gilbert, Arizona, right? Gilbert, Arizona, surrounded by farmland. It used to be farmland,
mm-hmm.
and around that, around that area, you have folks, settlers all around the farm, right? So you have about 5, 6, 10, 20, however many. But you are there stationed in the middle of your farm that you have proof dating back 1,000 years this farm belongs to you and your family and your kids and your kids' kids and so on. You just said you cannot leave all at once. So somebody has to stay remaining at the farm at all times,
mm-hmm.
because in the event that they leave, local settler will see that, come and take all your stuff and then take over that farm.
Yeah.
So basically, what would we call that?
Well, I mean, it's theft.
It's theft,
it's just
but like,
stealing
I mean, not just any theft. This is an estate theft. Is it burglary? Theft at a high level. I don't.
No, it's. And again, this is like the contrast between over there and here in America, because here in America, we have this very, like Lockean idea of the importance of private property rights.
Yeah.
Again, like the emphasis of private property here is, it's very high and it's good. There's a lot of good that comes out of that.
Oh yeah.
And over there, for a large portion of people, they just don't have that at all. Like they're, again, like this farm, Daoud, he cannot build anything more himself on his own farm because the permitting, he
has to pull permits.
Yes, he has to put permits in for it.
No.
And they deny everything.
Of course.
And if he builds something without the permit, they come and they bulldoze it.
Gosh.
So you have, like, again, like a lot of people, I think
So he's stuck in the Stone Ages.
Yeah.
Or whatever's there before the lawsuit.
Yeah. No, and there was like a little like house, and it was interesting. They had this, there's like this little like cave on the property. And, we spent some time like, talking in there, and it was so interesting because he was like, some, like great, whatever grandfather, grandmother were like born in here.
Yeah, this is my great grandfather's footsteps. My second, displaced grandparent. This one.
Yeah, and
generations and generations.
Yeah, and to give you again like an extent of this legal battle is, his lawyer ended up actually having to go to Istanbul to get like Ottoman era archives from this land. Because again, that's how
Daoud's lawyer.
Yes, Daoud's lawyer. Yes,
he had to go into the
Ottoman archives
in Istanbul, in Turkey,
to
obtain records, so to showcase his receipts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they have issues with like, the Israelis doing some typical kind of like legal strong arming where they'll be like, oh, we need like some like obscene amount of witnesses for something. They'll be like, oh, we need like 20 witnesses. And then they make them like wait outside a courthouse for like an entire business day. It's be like, okay, 20 witnesses need to be at the courthouse at like.
They won't. Even if you had them, they wouldn't wait there for 20 minutes.
Well, no, they go, right? That's the thing. He's got people.
No way.
And they go to the courthouse and it's like, all right, be here at 8. They're there at 8. 5 or 6 p.m. comes. All right, go away. We don't need you. So they just make them wait there all day. It's just typical kind of like.
This is malarkey, man.
Yeah, just like making the process work in a way that's like bad.
This is some tomfoolery. That's what it is.
And again, coming from here, when someone tells me like, oh, this place is like America, but in the Middle East, we don't do that.
Yeah.
Like that's not what a free democratic country is supposed to do. Again, something I think did, I changed my mind about and learned while I was there is I do think, going forward, the nature of the U.S.-Israeli relationship does need some refinement.
Okay.
Because, it's hard to, obviously, like, we're a huge defense partner for them, but to contribute, this amount of resources to a place that, has some very glaring issues that could really easily be fixed.
You think so?
Well, again, like the water, some of the like more ethnic.
If they have all this funding, they have all these resources, all this support. When you say fixed, internal fixes, I see a lot of Israelis speaking out more than I have ever in my entire life. Jewish Orthodox Jews speaking out, saying this is not Judaism, right? They don't stand for a country that goes the way that things are going, especially in late 23 and all of 2024 so far. So what do you recommend for the? It's not like they're gonna take any recommendations, but what do you think is the best step for the Israeli government moving forward to better their democracy, to better the people, their citizens, to better the Palestinians' lives, to better the Israelis' lives? What do you think is the best next step?
I think, again, the best next step in terms of like ease is fixing this water issue. You
think water's number one?
Water's number one. Again, because this is, because one, again, it's like it's a human right, like access to clean drinking water.
Yeah.
And I think that shows a lot of good faith. If the Israelis would be willing to like, look, we're gonna fix the water infrastructure. We'll see how relations are, and we'll kind of reassess as we go on. I think that's a great starting point. And in terms of like the most amount of good, I think that's what needs to happen.
Do you think there's capability of enforcing good faith and keeping it there?
Well, it's hard, because it's hard for the Palestinian people to, even like, if the Palestinians got everything they wanted, how do you forget decades? It's very difficult. And this is something, a lot of us need to, I think, start, like Imam Omar, he said this a while ago. It's like, we need to prepare our hearts now for when the situation changes. We cannot, just continue when the balance of power tilts. We cannot go in there and commit atrocities. Like if it's just this endless circle of like, you did this bad thing to me, I'm going to do a bad thing to you. Nobody wins.
Correct.
And
everyone becomes blind.
Yes. And this is actually one of the groups we kind of talked to over there was, there's this organization called Combatants for Peace.
Okay.
And so it's people who have fought, on both sides. So, like Israeli and then various, armed groups over the years. They've just said, like, look, we need to figure out another way to do this so we don't subject our children to the same things we did.
Absolutely.
Even like one of our Jewish guides, he used to work for Birthright, which are you familiar with?
Yes.
Yeah. So Birthright, for those listening that don't know, is like, if you're an American, I think if you're just Jewish around the world,
just Jewish,
you can like go there and they give you a tour, and it's very, they tell the story of the creation of Israel like as if there was no people living there before, and it's a very
one-sided.
Very one-sided telling of events. And he used to work for Birthright, but he left it because he felt it was a problem that they didn't do anything to show like what the Palestinians have been through.
It's like 2 million Palestinians there. You can't just make them go away.
Exactly. I mean? And this is a man. He he fought in the Golan Heights, and he's like had a friend that was like killed. And like he's a warrior, and him saying, you know, and a lot of times in history, this happens of like people who experience conflict, they say like, I don't want this to ever happen again. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't want this to be the future of my children. We need to figure out something to remedy this.
Absolutely. Next generation is gonna get even worse if it's not fixed now. So yeah, absolutely.
Yes. And you know, yeah, it was, so that was really like surprising, you know, seeing that like in a regular, like he's just like a guy like, you know, you and me. And, you know, the amount of courage I think that takes is remarkable. And a lot of us, you know, should, you know, aspire to have that level of virtue. And
the truth is the truth.
Yeah.
It'll set you free.
Yeah. And again, too, even like something, you know, we learned a bit about over there too was like Prime Minister Rabin. And, you know, he was assassinated, you know, by an Israeli Jew. And like him, like that was probably, I think, the closest like they would have gotten to like a two-state peaceful solution. And again, it was fueled by this, you know, he had spent time in the military. He wanted peace, you know, but they, you know, he's gone. You know, he was killed by his own people. And
anything that they worked on is gone.
Yes. Yeah. And it's so hard to, you know, come back to that. Because, you know, shortly after, you know, Prime Minister Netanyahu starts his, you know, political career. And, you know, again, the thing, I'm in no way, you know, supportive of him or anything. But the thing, you know, a lot of people don't know about him is, you know, his brother was killed.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, his brother. So the operation, they made a movie about it. I'm not sure if it was called Hamas back then, but they like took a plane hostage, landed it somewhere in Africa, and then like the IDF did this like very, very successful operation, and they like freed these people.
Yeah.
But Netanyahu's brother was the only casualty.
He got killed in the process of saving folks.
Yeah. And so it's very like the man lost his like it's hard. You know, like so many people over there and you know, they've experienced loss. And
you think this is the you think they're taking it out on the Palestinian folks because of the, like, do you think they put these folks in power that have trauma, unresolved issues, because they want to expand? Like, what is the goal of the Israeli government?
I do think it is to expand, because currently,
and they don't want peace seekers. They want Palestinian killers, essentially.
Yes, and again, we see this on display currently because we can see now, you know, since you know, the war started, is there's been huge land grabs in the West Bank.
Yeah, there has been land grabs in the West Bank.
And
like setting markets on fire,
yes,
completely destroying homes, kicking folks out. It has increased drastically.
Yes, and you know, Hamas doesn't have influence.
It's nothing to do with West Bank.
Nothing to do with the West Bank. So it's very clear that, you know, this is not about, you know, like some number of hostages. This is not about Hamas. Their strategic interests right now are to take as much land as they can.
And if 60,000 people have to die, 30 of them women and children, that's okay.
Yes. And it's, you know, it's tragic, and this is something where, again, I think as America, something I wish, you know, we would do is, you know, be a little bit more, much more firm and like, look, if you're going to conduct, you know, operations, you know, against like Hamas cells, you know, you need to do more to mitigate civilian casualties.
There's so much technology these days.
I know, and like, you know, I do think like the ICJ stuff, you know, it is definitely like movement in the right direction, but you know, at the same time, like they don't have like an enforcement measure though. So like, they can do, you know, like they can come to whatever ruling, but the thing that's, you know, unfortunate about it is like there's nobody really there to like enforce it.
It's a pinky promise.
Yeah. So, you know, like unless, like they issue a warrant for, like Israeli, like, because I think they've talked about like
was it Norway or Sweden?
Yeah, like issuing warrants for like some arrests.
Yeah.
But unless some of these people they want to get like travel to countries that are like party to the ICC, then nothing's like they can't go in there and get them.
Correct, yeah.
So I don't know. It is, and again, so, I would like to kind of mention too is like when I talk about like what I've experienced and how I've kind of like changed my mind and everything and all this, like a lot of people, when I'm speaking with them, they say like, like my faith comes up. Like they say like, oh,
you mentioned Christianity.
Yeah. They say like, oh, of course you support the Palestinian people is just because you're Muslim. And it's like, well, like it's not just that, because like, again, while I was there, the Palestinians we actually like met with were Christian.
Yeah.
And seeing
Catholic Palestinians, yes.
Well, they were Orthodox, not
okay.
Catholic.
Not Catholic.
Okay. Yeah. And it's not about like Islam. It's about there's an oppressor and an oppressed, and
remove religion out of it.
Yes, like it's not about I mean, obviously, like my faith guides me to do things like this. Like speak out in the cause of like truth and justice.
Absolutely,
of course, but it's not like, oh, I'm just supporting them because it's like majority Muslim. It's not that. Because there is, again, a lot of things like Americans don't understand is there's a ton of Christians over there, and both in in Palestine and in Gaza, and the Israelis don't care, like they don't get any special treatment.
Mm-hmm.
Again, even too, like something kind of surprised me was in Jerusalem, like I've seen like Christian, I don't know if they're like Catholic or Orthodox or I can't tell the difference, but like they're women, like look like nuns sort of when they walk around. Sometimes, again, not all Jews, some Jews. Yeah. Most Jews are very wonderful people. They're our cousins in faith.
Absolutely.
And we treat them with respect and acknowledge all the calamity they've endured. But I've seen them like spit.
I've seen videos on that, yeah.
And so when people say like, "Oh, I'm Christian, of course I support Israel," it's like they don't.
You should go there.
Yeah, it's like they don't support
you,
how
buddy. They feel about you.
Yeah. It's like, so I don't know. Again, I would like to mention that, because again, people are quick to when I talk about it, they're like, "Oh, of course you believe X, Y, and Z. It's just because of your faith." It's like, no, I went there. I wasn't Muslim. I became Muslim in August. I went in May.
Hey, Mabruk.
So
when you said you just became Muslim in August of last year. So is it after your trip? Did it?
Yeah.
It really sat with you, huh?
Well, again, honestly, it wasn't like being there. Like, it's not like I was like, oh, I like saw Masjid Al-Aqsa, so like
I gotta do it.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was anything like that. It was just like,
what drove you to it?
I just read Quran over the summer, so I was like, I had an interest in it before we went.
Before I went,
yeah. So like I knew about like Masjid Al-Aqsa and like some of these things before I went. And again, it wasn't until I came back, like I started reading Quran in May, kind of read it off and on. And then, when I finished it, that's when I took my Shahada. Over the course of reading it, like it was just, it was very, very clear to me that this is, the word of God.
Oh, wow.
And, a lot stuck out to me about it. Again, coming from the Christian background is like something that I kind of always wrestled with was like the worship of Prophet Isa, peace be upon him, as like 1/3 of God, whereas like he said in his own words, he says my Father and your Father, my Lord and your Lord, like with the sort of the connotation that like we all come from God. And I remember too, like especially this part too, like after going there and coming back is in the second surah of Quran, kind of paraphrasing a little bit.
Surah Al-Baqarah.
Yeah, Surah Al-Baqarah.
The cow.
Yes. God tells us that us and the people of the book should race to do good deeds.
Ahl al-Kitab.
Yes, I just thought that was the most beautiful. Like, how much better would our world be today if,
Can't we all just get along?
Yes, if we actually like you think about that, like racing, because the idea of a race is to win, right? To do the most good deeds you possibly can. Yeah. And what if we like did that? What if we were, the Christians build a school. Now the Jews build like a bigger school, and then we build like a school plus some other thing, and I give this much to charity, we want to give more. Like how much better the human experience would be
coming together versus competing. Absolutely.
Yes. Well, coming together in competition for something good. And it's just been it's been a wonderful experience.
That's awesome.
So far.
You're praying your 5?
Yes. Oh yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So keeping up with Salah, awesome. And
Alhamdulillah.
Meeting all of these, again, alhamdulillah, we're very blessed. Like very good masjid right here, ICC Tempe.
I love ICC. Yeah. Yes. Mr. Silver, you've been amazing. You've been wonderful. Thank you for sharing your stories. I definitely want to hear a part 2 when you go to India or
Romania.
Romania.
Okay,
yes,
Romania. Yes, Romania.
When you come back, we gotta hear. We gotta get chapter 2.
Yes,
Romania.
Of course. Yeah,
tell us about the democracies.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you again for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming, Mr. Silver, and you have a wonderful day. Okay.